Hello and welcome back to MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things Magic. It's Friday and that means MTG Burgeoning's longest standing signature series returns for its 36th installment. That's right folks, it's the Kitchen Table series. It's deck number 36. It's Orzhov Lifedrain. Hello fans of MTG Burgeoning. Here we are, the Kitchen Table series returns with deck number 36. That's right, MTG Burgeoning's longest standing series continues with another deck tech. And in today's video, we are going to roll out with an Orzhov Lifedrain deck. All kinds of fun going on with this deck, folks. So let's get right to it. And as is generally customary during the Kitchen Table series, we are going to begin with the land base. So we're going to have lots of basic swamps in this deck. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We got 12 basic swamps. Now we did say Orzhov, so we are going to splash some basic plains in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 18. We got 1.5 dozen basic lands, 12 swamps, and 6 plains. And to complete the land base of 20 lands, we are going to include a playset of Isolated Chapel. It is the Orzhov check land and enters the battlefield tapped unless we control a plains or a swamp. 4 copies of Isolated Chapel. 20 lands. However, you gotta tap some big mana sometimes to drain our opponent's life. So we're done with the land base, but we're not done with the mana base. So let's make sure we're at the kitchen table. We're in black. We need big mana, so we're playing Dark Ritual. And we're playing 4 copies just because we can't play 12. 4 copies, 1 play set of Dark Ritual. Of course, we're at the kitchen table, so that's 1 Soul Ring. So now we're up to 25 sources of mana so far, and we're not done yet, folks. We are going to complete our mana with 4 copies of Thran Dynamo. 4 to cast, turn it sideways, 3 colorless mana to our mana pool, just looking to drain out our opponent's life. So if you're keeping track at home, in a standard 60-card constructed deck, nearly half of it has to do with mana, and that's because we want to push out the big mana, we want to get the spells out there, we want to drain down our opponents so that we can shuffle up and play another game. So before we get to some of those bigger spells, let's showcase some of the heavy lifters that are going to help us in the early turns to kind of ward off our opponents from attack and maybe gain us a little life in the process. So we're going to start with Vampire Cutthroat. Its mana cost is 1 black. It's a 1/1 Skulker with lifelink, and if you're not familiar with Skulk, that was a mechanic set way back during the time of Eldritch Moon. And Skulk says that if this creature can't be blocked by creatures with greater power, so any creature that has power 2 or higher, you're not blocking Vampire Cutthroat. It's going to slide in, it's going to take a point of life from our opponent, and it's going to deposit it right where our life dice lie. 3 copies of Vampire Cutthroat. Staying on tune with the single black mana cost, we're going to include Vampire of the Dire Moon. For 1 black, it's a 1/1 with Death Touch and Lifelink. So we have no problem trading up. Again, we get to gain a life, especially if our opponents decide to block with one of their bigger creatures. 3 copies of Vampire of the Dire Moon. So that's 6 1-drops so far. Next up, we're going to skip right past the 2-drop to go to our 3-drop because this may be one of the best creatures we could cast in all of Magic with a turn 1 Dark Ritual. And that's going to be Vampire Nighthawk. For 1 and 2 black, we have a 2/3 with Flying, Death Touch, and Lifelink. So we have the evasion of Flying, the defensiveness of Death Touch, and the Lifelink that this deck is built around. 3 copies of Vampire Nighthawk, and that is a great turn 1 play. Swamp into Dark Ritual, into Vampire Nighthawk. And now a more recent addition, one that I wish could be a turn 1 play, but it just has to wait to turn 2, well, hopefully turn 2 or potentially turn 3, and that's going to be Kuneros, Hound of Athreos. For 1 white and a black, it's a 3/3 with Vigilance, Menace, and Lifelink. Creature cards in graveyards can't enter the battlefield, and players can't cast spells from graveyards. I am just shocked that this creature is not more popular. Plus, it's legendary. So this, in the EDH format, could act as a pretty powerful commander for just a CMC of 3. For a CMC of 3, it's got a 3 toughness, a 3 power, 3 evergreen mechanics, and plus Graveyard Hosiery. I don't get it. Kuneros, Hound of Athreos, amazing at the kitchen table, even better at the commander table. 4 copies of the Hound of Athreos. Now, when talking about best turn 1 plays in this deck, yes, the turn 1 swamp into Dark Ritual to Vampire Nighthawk would most likely be our best turn 1 play. However, if we set our sights a little higher, if we are a little bit more optimistic, and we hope that we could get turn 1 swamp into Dark Ritual into a second Dark Ritual, which is not impossible. I've done it myself. If we can aim our sights a little higher by thinking turn 1 swamp Dark Ritual for 5 black mana on turn 1, casting a Divinity of Pride, it's going to be a game-ending spell on turn 1. Here we have an Orzhov CMC of a total of 5. So any combination of Orzhov mana is going to put a 4/4 flying lifelinker into play. And Divinity of Pride gets +4/+4 as long as you have 25 or more life. So as long as our life total is at least 5 points higher than where we started at 20 at the kitchen table, then we're playing with an 8/8 flying lifelinker for a 5 CMC. Amazing. And even at the EDH table with this card coming down, oh my goodness, look at that. You already have over 25 life if you can get it in play early enough. An 8/8 flyer for that. 4 copies of Divinity of Pride. Like I said, if we're lucky enough to turn 1 swamp into Dark Ritual into a second Dark Ritual, Divinity of Pride is where it's at. All right, so now that we've showcased the creatures, let's talk about a few removal spells just to make sure that our opponents are, well checked in what they're trying to stop us in doing. Of course, we're going to have a Swords to Plowshares, and I will share there have been times in the past that I've cast a Sword of Plowshares on one of my own Divinity of Pride in order to activate a second Divinity of Pride. 2 copies, Swords to Plowshares. Next up, this card is an awesome one. It's a little pricier than Swords to Plowshares, but it definitely gets the job done if it's a creature that we're looking to exile. And that's going to be Utter End. 2 white and a black. Come on, camera, get in the game before you get exiled. There we go. 2 white and a black. We exile target non-land permanents. Gotta love Khans of Tarkir. 2 copies of Utter End. And the last form of disruption that we're including in this spell, the last disruption spell that we're including in this deck, not deck that we're including in this disruption spell. This is something that's going to slow down our opponents as well as speed up our overall game plan. And that's going to be a copy of Blind Obedience. For 1 and a white, it's an enchantment from Gatecrash that reads, artifacts and creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. So that will slow down our opponent's development, particularly with all of their mana rocks. Additionally, and so much more flavorfully, we have the Extort mechanic here on Blind Obedience. And for anyone who's unfamiliar with Extort back during the days of Gatecrash and Dragon's Maze, Extort reads, whenever you cast a spell, you may pay an Orzhov mana, which is white or black. And if we do, each opponent loses 1 life and we gain that much life. So by taxing ourselves with a white or black mana whenever we cast a spell, we drain our opponent's lives even further and inflate our own. One copy of Blind Obedience, and I swear to you, I attest to this, I recommend it. Blind Obedience does amazing work. All right, we are down to the last few spells of our deck, folks. We only got 7 left. So let's get to the biggins. Card 1, Boon Reflection. It is an enchantment back from the days of Shadowmoor. 4 and a white. If we would gain life, we gain twice that much life instead. Now, keep that enchantment in mind when I showcase the next enchantment, which is going to be Sanguine Bond. For 3 and 2 black, Sanguine Bond reads, whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. Now, for any potential speculators out there, let me squash your enthusiasm right now. Unfortunately, we are not playing with the Exquisite Blood Sanguine Bond infinite combo to drain the entire table. This is more of a fun deck. I didn't want to include something that would be as warped and degenerate as other decks that we've shown during this kitchen table series. So the Exquisite Blood, which reads, whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. With both of those enchantments in play, the Exquisite Blood and the Sanguine Bond, it forms an unending loop until each opponent has 0 life left. But we're not trying to be that evil. We're looking to have a little bit of fun at the table. So no Exquisite Blood here, but Sanguine Bond combined with the Boon Reflection. Whenever we gain life, we gain twice that life, and then target opponent will lose double that life. 1 copy of Sanguine Bond. Next up, and one of the most recent, actually this might be the most recent edition, and it's coming from Ravnica Allegiance. It's a split card. It's 1 copy of Revival and Revenge. The Revival part reads, for 2 Orzhov mana, return target creature with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. That is not the portion of this spell that I see myself casting with any degree of regularity. It is the right half of this card that is so much better for what we're trying to do. For 4 white and a black, Revenge reads, double your life total and target opponent loses half their life, rounded up. So imagine casting Revenge the turn after Boon Reflection or Sanguine Bond. Game over for someone, folks. 1 copy, Revival and Revenge. Actually, let's turn it so it looks like that. Oh, yeah, that looks awesome. All right, so we are down to our last play set of spells. This is the biggin. This is what sets the entire table down. And with all honesty, folks, this is the card that makes Exsanguinate look like crap. That's right. I said it. You can roast me in the comment section for days, for weeks, for months, for years. I will stamp my name on it. This card makes Exsanguinate look like crap. And that's Debt to the Deathless. Going to the days of Dragon's Maze. Who would have thought Dragon's Maze would have valuable spells like this? Debt to the Deathless is a sorcery that costs X, 2 white and 2 black. And it reads, each opponent loses 2 times X life. You gain X life to the life lost this way. So in comparison to a spell like Exsanguinate, which is 2 black and X, once you hit a certain threshold with X, Debt to the Deathless becomes more valuable than Exsanguinate because of the 2 times X in the text box below it. And you have to think to yourself, we're already in Orzhov colors, so why would we include Exsanguinate when we can include a card far superior in Debt to the Deathless? Particularly as I slowly bring the 4 spells down, exposing the Thran Dynamo up there at the top, we have 29 cards that produce mana in this deck. So being able to cast a massive game-ending Debt to the Deathless within the first few turns of the game is not going to be difficult at all. Debt to the Deathless, better than Exsanguinate. 4 copies of this game-ending Orzhov sorcery. And folks, that is going to do it for this deck tech. This is the Kitchen Table series. This is MTG Burgeoning's longest running signature series. This is Orzhov Lifedrain, deck tech number 36. MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things Magic.